So hello and welcome, and today we're going to be talking about looking at creating formula. So we looked at plus and minus numbers. The whole numbers are called natural numbers. Positive and negative whole numbers are called integers. So we're going to be looking at integers. But integers are not quite as intuitive to your mind. It's a little bit harder to get a grasp of what's going on. So you need to think about what you're doing in terms of numbers that you do understand. That way you find a method and then you apply the method to the numbers. So let's have a look. The temperature in Ireland is minus 7 degrees. The temperature in France is minus 8 degrees more than Ireland. Now we would never say this in English, but sometimes it happens in formulas. So we saw before that when we're using formulas, we end up saying strange things. So this can happen. But let's have a look at how we solve that. We want to solve what temperature is it in France. Okay. First of all, let's pick some numbers that we do understand. Let's imagine that the temperature in Ireland is 10 degrees centigrade and the temperature in France is 3 degrees more. Well, what temperature is it in France then? We know it's going to be 10 degrees plus the 3 degrees more. France is 10 degrees, the temperature in Ireland, plus those 3 degrees more. Okay? So the answer, of course, in France is it's 13 degrees centigrade. But what we're interested in is what did we do? What was our method? And our method was to add the two values, the temperature in Ireland and how many more degrees it was. Notice we used the word more, we used the word more. When we have more, we are adding. You know this already from primary school, but just got to get into the habit. Now that we're dealing with numbers that are hard to understand, you need to think carefully using numbers you do understand and come up with a method. Our method is to add the two values. Let's go back to the question. The temperature in Ireland is 7. The temperature in France is negative 8 degrees more. Of course, we would never say that, but sometimes in formula these things happen. So let's add the two values and see what we get. Okay, so we had temperature in Ireland is minus 7 degrees. We're going to add negative 8 degrees. Again, this is just like being on the bus. We have 7 and another minus 8. It's like 7 get off the bus, another 8 get off the bus, for a total of 15 getting off the bus. So our answer is going to be minus 15 degrees centigrade is the temperature, France temperature. Okay. What did we do? We used numbers that we know how to use, that are very clear to us in our mind, in order to figure out what we did. What we did was we added these two values. That becomes our method. So we add minus 7 and minus 8 together and we get minus 15. Let's have a look with slightly more awkward numbers and different question. The Irish temperature is negative 3 degrees centigrade. The French temperature is minus 3 degrees less than Ireland. So this is the thing we're looking at. We're looking at less than Ireland, and we want to know what the temperature is in France. So again, our first step is to use values that make sense to you. So we're going to pick Ireland being 20 degrees and France being 3 degrees less. What's our method? How do we figure out what to do? Well, we know how to do this with the numbers. You've practiced this in primary school a lot. You know that if it's 20 degrees in Ireland and 3 degrees less in France, we have the temperature in France is the 20 degrees and you subtract 3 degrees to get 17 degrees. The important thing here is not how difficult the question is. The important thing is that you realize what your method was. Your method was to take the temperature in Ireland and subtract how much less it was in France. The temperature in Ireland is 20. It's 3 degrees less in France, so it's 20. Subtract 3 degrees. Then you use the method for the question. The question was the temperature in Ireland was minus 3 degrees. Temperature in France was negative 3 degrees less. Our method was the temperature in Ireland, subtract how much less it is in France, which is temperature in Ireland minus 3 degrees subtract how much less it is in France. It's -3 less. Again, we would never say -3 degrees less. We would always say 3 degrees more. But sometimes in formulas, this sort of thing happens. You end up with a minus minus. And as we know, when you have a minus minus, that's the same as a plus. So you have -3 and a +3. And remember, again, like getting on and off the bus, 3 get off, 3 get on, you're back to 0. Okay, so these are the steps. Use values that make sense to you to work it out. Work out what you do. What do you do? What is your method? And your method here is to subtract how much less it is from the temperature in Ireland. Previously, we said the temperature was so many degrees more. What is our method? Our method was to add those values. Then you just follow your method. It's -7 degrees and you add -8 degrees and you get your answer. Again, you would never say -8 degrees more. You would always see 8 degrees less. But the idea is when you're using formula, you might not have the opportunity to say more. The formula might say how many degrees more. And then you might end up with negative numbers. So you know how to deal with negative numbers. But the thing again is, what is your method? Your method was to add the numbers, and you just add the two values that you have, even though they're quite strange values to add. Similarly, if you're asked how many degrees, if you're told how many degrees less it is, you use a method using values that make sense to you to create a method, a way of figuring out the question. Once you've figured out how to do the question, you can use unusual numbers, numbers that are not intuitive to you, and you'll get the right answer. Okay, so go ahead and have a go at these questions.